behind us, right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, in the whole my heart, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black face.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs, too. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris.
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, December 11th, 2022. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host, Mr. Chris Bennett. Hello, Chris.
Steve, good to see you, bud. I got to confess, I've been watching you a little earlier on Nikki's show. That was interesting.
That was quite the job. And, of course, our guest tonight, the one, the only Forkchop, Sean Forker. There he is. Hello, Sean. How are you tonight, my brother?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me with you.
And, Sean and I go way back. And, man, it's so good to have you on the video version. It's been a few years.
It's great that we have this now, because back in the day, it was a telephone and a blog talk radio. And, I heard you talking about that a couple weeks ago on the show, like back in 06. It was you and me, man. It was you, and then it was me. And it started kind of a trend, I think. And now look at it. Here we are.
Yeah,
still going.
6,000 hosts, but we're the we're the old men of the crew.
Yeah, still. Am I old yet? Am I still old yet?
Do you have any kids out of high school?
Yeah, I have one in college, Steve.
You're old.
You're old. Sorry.
You're old.
Well, those were the days of dial-up internet. You remember that? Your computer would dial the phone number, then
I do. You've got mail.
But I remember in the old horrible sounding podcast, you sound like this all the time. What did you say?
You try to edit them and bring them back as like special sometimes to re-release them for people. It's dreadful. You spend so much time editing and cleaning it up. It's not.
Well, I know I did two. I did one for the John Green episode I had done, and then I had done the Eric Beckchard one. And not the one with you though.
Thank God.
And Sean Forker is the only person I know that shut Eric Bedford up.
I did. Well,
Maybe.
besides
No,
Mother
no.
Nature, she took care of him forever. But
Oh, Lord, that hurts.
I won.
Yeah, you did. So anyway, here is the fun thing. I know a lot of people are floating in to the chat tonight, and usually we do a roll call, but there's so many people in here right now.
Come on in, children. All welcome. All welcome.
Good to see some folks in here. Good to see some new folks. Hopefully you'll subscribe to the channel and listen to some of this wonderful banter. It's not going to be the 10 pounds of BS in a 9-pound bag that you saw an hour earlier with the mouth from the South running his mouth.
We are not scripted.
No, we are not.
Some people never learn.
No, and if there's one takeaway from that is he panders to every crowd. I kind of half suspected he was going to come out and say that what he told us was just to satisfy us. And of course he's pandering to the crowd and, there's only so many people in here listening, yada, yada, yada. Well, the fact is that he will pander because he knows this will propagate, that show will propagate and get passed around and looked. And, very interesting. I found out who my troll was in there, and he is some dude in New Hampshire that likes to show glyphs and show, all these Sasquatch structures up in New Hampshire. So he must be taking offense to my making fun of glyphs and talking down about tree structures. And sorry to wreck his day, but what he has got is no evidence of Sasquatch. So
yeah, it's not possible. You can't rule out that Bigfoots do make these things. It's just I don't think anybody's seen one doing that. So.
I think it's the frequency upon which people find them that gets a little bit more concerning. Natural tree falls become tree structures to everybody.
Right.
And James and I, Baker and I, have some land out there. And one of the things we noticed when we were out in the land is all these, you could say tree structures. But what it is just the trees break and they fall in these formations. And there they are. But if you were to take somebody out there that was really, dead set on, trying to make these tree structures a thing, it'd be a tree structure everywhere.
Oh, they're going to find X's everywhere. Yep.
And he's finding stuff every single time he goes out. And then has the nerve to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Why? Because you're finding trees, blown over and stacked and in the woods.
I was
one of those.
I was watching Bill Rigby, a friend of mine, on Facebook the other day, and they found this tree structure in the woods, and he just methodically tore that thing apart. And it was just good to see, people using critical thinking and logic to dispel some of this stuff. Not that, guys, look, I want Bigfoot to be real just as much as anybody else. And I think, I can comfortably say it is because of experiences I've had and whatnot, but to go out and prove that to somebody else is a different beast altogether. And you're not going to do that by believing everything is Bigfoot, believing everything you run into is Sasquatch related. And if I had stuff happening to me as much as some people do, I think I'd have something to show for it. But there are people that go out there all the time and have something happen all the time.
Yep. Impossible.
That's that's beating the odds there. You can't really go out and get a film of Bigfoot every day.
Well, if we were to take one of these people into a place where there's been no Sasquatch activity reported, doesn't mean there's no Bigfoot that's ever been there, just no reports.
Right.
You wonder if they would still have something,
right?
So it's just interesting. There are hot spots. You got put up here the Chestnut Ridge, a crazy spot in Pennsylvania. There's other hot spots in Pennsylvania, but I think where we're at right now, because they're so popular, the oversaturation that's going to happen to these places, you're not going to be able to go and get the evidence you want or do the type of research you want to do, because everybody wants to be there now. So we got to start finding new places to go. So I'm going to round up a couple of these, diehard believers, and I'm going to put them on leashes and let them take me to these spots where they're having Bigfoot.
Yep. Somebody asked me if I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from New York. Sean is from Pennsylvania. There he is.
He's my neighbor to the north.
He's my neighbor to the south, and Chris is my neighbor way more to the south.
Well,
in Kentucky.
They call Kentucky the South, but we're kind of in the middle, though, really.
And welcome, Tracy, to the show. So, and anybody else that's new, Dinosaur Hunter, hello.
We were neutral during the Civil War, but it's kind of funny because a lot of battles were fought right here. I mean, just down the street.
Yeah.
But, we were supposed to be neutral, but, hey, the North and the South met here and they kind of like beat up on each other. Okay.
Yeah. And thank you for the history lesson, Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, sorry.
I love it.
Yes, we're not.
You just get passionate about passionate about your home. I get it. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm from New York. So anyway,
I thought you were going to play the intro to The Sopranos.
No. Actually, The Sopranos were from New Jersey.
New Jersey, yeah.
But yeah, So that show you guys just came out of, I think I tied him up pretty good on certain things because he couldn't answer straight. Especially when I asked him if he was filming with Minnow Films, he nearly tripped over himself. So I'm almost half wondering if there's a Shooting Sasquatch 2 coming out. Which of course,
got to start promoting now.
Yeah, I am like a kid with a whoopee cushion. It's been a long time since I've had a soundboard. So, but we'll change up the sounds in a little bit. So, not today though. Anyway, so Sean, you were part of this Small Town Monsters, the Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge. Can you tell us about Chestnut Ridge? I've been there. I've been close to there. I've been to the the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure, which is basically on the ridge or near the ridge enough.
Yeah, Eric keeps them pretty close to it. He's Fayette County, which is, a huge area of activity. The ridge runs through it. Westmoreland County up into the Laurel Highlands. I guess the Chestnut Ridge is a part of the Laurel Highlands, and then up, just an area of high strangeness in general, not just Bigfoot, but, I stay in the Bigfoot lane because that's where, that's my thing. But the amount of sightings that have happened in that place is just unreal. And I don't think you could put a reason as to why. I think if you go into it, it's because it's a heavily trafficked area now. I think the research that's gone into this since the 2000s have made it a lot more popular than, maybe we need it to be, because, again, I worry about that. We oversaturate these places and build them up, and then everybody wants to go there. And not that we don't want people to get out and enjoy this, but there's the enjoyment and then there's the actual research part. And sometimes they're going to clash. And, but I wish I could say I knew what the cause was for this concentration of sightings in this area. I used to think it was because there's so many researchers down there. There's a lot of outlets to report it to. Stan Gordon, Eric Altman, PA Bigfoot Society,
Charlie
Wonton. Yeah. Charlie Wonton. He and his wife out there, a lot of folks out there investigating the ridge. So there's a lot of ways to get that information to people. But there's a lot of other areas of Pennsylvania too, up towards the Allegheny National Forest is a huge area of a lot of activity that I think is just now starting to get tapped into because people are starting to investigate that area. And that makes, a world of difference in terms of trying to correlate data and get sighting reports. People know somebody's there that's going to take them seriously. They'll start reporting it back in. So you got those two concentrated areas of sighting in Pennsylvania. Is it because there's more activity that happens there than anywhere else? I don't know. I think it's because there's just more active researchers there than anywhere else.
I have a Charlie Wonton joke. What happens at the Wonton household when their electric bill is too high?
What's that, Steve?
Lights off, and then they dim something.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Wow.
terrible.
That was bad. That was bad. Even Charlie hit his face on that one.
We will probably be seeing a video of Charlie Wonton talking about that joke. Turn off some, dim some.
Dim some. Poor Charlie.
Poor Charlie. Anyway, so let me ask you this. Have you found that since COVID that the Chestnut Ridge has gotten more saturated with people because people were getting out a lot more than they had done in previous years?
I wish I could say that with any kind of veracity. I think that I would expect because more people were out, we would have had a lot more sighting reports that have happened. I'm not privy to so many of them that come through there. Altman gets them and shares them with us. Stan Gordon, shares them when he gets them occasionally. He stays busy, but I thought that with so many people not having any other outlets to go to but into the woods, we would have had more. Perhaps we would have had more, and I'm rolling my eyes as I say this, more photographs, more videos. We would have had something more through this, but not as much as I thought we would have.
Right. Because the big thing in my area is I noticed that since COVID, everybody's discovered that area. So now I go up there and it's like, usually the second or third week of September, that place is empty. And I'm like, there's still people here. What the hell? So unfortunately,
I think we're fortunate. I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, I'm just saying that, it's made research in those particular areas a little more difficult with the influx of people. So.
What I think is fortunate is that the areas that we research down here, and I say we, I mean Eric and them. I'm a special guest out there on the ridge. I don't get there as much as they do, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm making myself an authority. That's not what I'm saying. The areas we research down there are so off the beaten path, folks wouldn't find them. You have to know exactly where the hell you're going to get to them. They're deep into the woods. They're not a known trail. So there are areas I'm confident that a lot of folks wouldn't be able to get to. So a lot of the research you get from those areas is uncontaminated. You're getting, I think a little bit more reliable data than you would if you were out in, let's say, Keystone State Park at this point. Keystone State Park is, heavily, that's in Derry, right on the ridge. Chestnut or Keystone State Park, though, is very heavily trafficked.
And Agent of the Unexplained, welcome to the show. Since COVID, I've gotten more reports locally in Mercer and Lawrence County, Pennsylvania. And Brent over at the Tall Ones, hello Brent, said locally here in Washington, people visiting woods increased 20% since COVID. So
yeah, I could see that.
Yep. Questions from Kaiju Ninja, 1985, said, what kinds of things has Sean experienced that makes him believe that Bigfoot is out there?
Wow, that's a loaded question. One, if we go back to the beginning of this, into the early 2000s when I became part of the PA Bigfoot Society, an incident that Tim Cassidy and I had in the woods in Keystone State Park, where we both felt like we were hit with some sort of infrasound or, well, we don't know what it was. Infrasound seems to be the logical thing by the reaction I had. Tim still thinks it was some sort of pheromonal reaction that he experienced. Tim doubled over and was really nauseous, and I was really like on edge and amplified and scared, crapless. And we heard this loud crashing through the brush, And at that point in time, my fight or flight kicked in and I chased after it. And the next thing you know, I've got members of the PA Bigfoot Society chasing me, chasing after this thing because I was young and stupid. And, you just don't go chasing after things that you don't know what they are. But as we grouped back together, we got back into the power line clearing as we started walking down back towards the vehicles. Norm G, one of our group members, Norm Gagnon, I always butcher his last name. Was a pretty well-known researcher at the time. He snapped a photograph of the tree line. And if you look at that photograph in the tree line, you can see a defined humanoid shape in the woods, not far from the area where we believe the thing ran to after we had chased after it. It's just really interesting. And, I don't put a lot of credence in photographs, Steve, but this was, there's definitely something you could have said in that photograph that was humanoid shaped. So that's one thing. I recorded a sound file in Keystone State Forest. And I think if you watched the last episode of Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge, they play it. I sent that to Seth and the team for them to, put on there. And that was interesting because it was an interactive thing. I was responding to a sound I heard. I made a sound back. It made a sound back to me. And of all things, it sounded like a damn cow in the woods. Never understood that. It was just the sound it made was so different than it sounded like a low kind of mooing grunt sound. And as I went back and forth with it, I could change, my cadence and it would change it a little bit as well. It was really interesting to experience. And then of course I had a sighting in 2012 with me and my buddies up in Clearfield County, which scared me so bad. I almost gave up the research and left the field. We were camping. To make a very long story short, we were camping and we had a repeat visitation to our campsite. We had put the fire out at something at one point had put the logs back on the fire and rekindled the fire. It was just a really intense night we had out there. It was crazy. So those things all bundled up, really give me credence that this thing exists. I was out with Billy Willard one time out on the Chestnut Ridge, Gray Station. Billy got eye shine out there and we had a rock thrown at us, a softball sized rock that went right in between me and Billy, almost hit me right in the face. But, you look at those things and say, well, those are some pretty impressive things that have happened, but you have to look at the time span upon which they happened.
Right.
They didn't happen one after each other. These are things that have happened after years of research. So it makes me a little bit more confident that at least some of these things weren't just in my head, and sure. I've been fortunate enough to experience these things with more than one person. So with Tim Cassidy and I in the Chestnut Ridge, where we had the infrasound, my research partner, Ernie Delp, Chuck and Catherine Holderby, they were with me when we got the sound file, and Dustin and Ray, my best friends, some of my best friends, they were on the ridge out in Keystone, out in Clearfield County with us that night. We had our experience, which is just a crow's fly from the Allegheny National Forest, where, interesting enough, I learned a couple years later that there was another gentleman that was camping out there and had experienced the same thing with something rekindling his fire.
Interesting.
So it's different. That's not something that I was familiar with in Bigfoot activity, right? But, it kind of makes sense depending on how long.
Do you think they're mimicking us?
I think so, but I think if you, how to say this without sounding crazy, you hear the reports of, vocalizations and these things being able to mimic other animals and other sounds. Like they definitely have some sort of intelligence to be able to do that. I mean, we mimic,
yep.
We mock and we try to replicate, just sometimes out of humor, sometimes out of curiosity. We do it when we're trying to vocalize to them. So perhaps it will, take that opportunity to kind of do the same thing in its behavior, mimic what it sees us do. Right.
Mm-hmm. Barb Sandy asking, am I from Western New York Bigfoot? No, I am not. Joe has been invited on my team, and I just have a very quiet acting team of people that I take out in the woods with me. a group of guys. It's not like we have anything official. It's not like an organization. I'm over on the eastern part of New York. In fact, I'm, literally maybe 15, 20 minutes to the Vermont border. So I'm not all that far. I'm in the most east. Actually, in the county I live in borders with Vermont. So, now,
Sean,
I wanted to ask I want to hit a couple of questions on Sean that while it's fresh in my mind, we're talking about. I don't know if you were aware of the 2011 where something Jeff Thomas was with our group, as was Melissa Hovey and Wayne Larson. They were, we were all camped out, and it had been raining, and we were collecting birch all day long because birch will burn regardless if it's wet or dry. And at some point in the night, about 1:30, I'd say, I got up to use a tree, and that's when I saw my 5.5-foot juvenile. Just as soon as I got out of the tent, it took off. The next morning, Jeff had found a birch log behind his Jeep that was not there the evening previously because he went out to his Jeep at 11 o'clock, and he would have tripped over. So, what can I say?
I remember Jeff telling that story when he was speaking at the Mothman Festival a few years back. And, again, to go to your question, do they mimic? It would be hard to think they wouldn't, but we don't know, but it would be hard to think they wouldn't.
Right.
Well, would not watching a fire burn, wouldn't that be entertainment for them? Be something out of the ordinary, and maybe they like watching it.
Watching the people around the fire.
Hey, maybe.
Yeah. They're, we congregate around it. We tell stories. We laugh.
Right.
Some folks saying, it is a center of entertainment for us as much as it's, warmth or light. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it could, definitely see that as how we see it, Chris. Why not?
Interesting.
But, if you had the, birch tree, move behind the Jeep and, other situations where, things have happened and replication. I mean, you gather enough data over time, we could say that, we could make a good case for it.
Right. And truthfully, the sighting I had in 2011, it was definitely watching us at the campfire. I walked out to my car, quietly and just get batteries and shine my light, and there it is. And, what can I say more about it? It just, it was watching because it was October, leaves had fallen. It can look right over to where that fire was, no problem. So I think it's a very fascinating facet that they will watch us, and at times they will mimic us. I think that it's almost like a game to them. So I find it very curious about putting the logs on the fire. It sounds like to me they were watching you guys putting logs on the fire, and you guys left, boom, plop one there.
Imitation.
Yeah, I mean, it was just funny how it happened because we were in the tent, we're just lying there. We heard something walking around the campsite, and the bipedal heavy walking, and I see Dustin's little cell phone light pop on. He goes, "You hear that?" I said, "Yeah." We're lying there a little bit, and all of a sudden we start seeing this orange glow from outside the tent. And Dustin gets out, and there's the fire. It was rekindled. So definitely a different experience. Never expected that to happen. And it kept coming back that night. We had gotten it to run off when I jumped out of the tent. Dustin was still out there. I jumped out of the tent. It ran up the hillside, and then you could hear it kind of go around the perimeter of the little meadow we were in. And I had called. I ran to the center of the field because the only place you get service, the only place out there you could get like a bar or two of service. So I called Carrie Rupert. Her husband Dave is a good friend of mine, a researcher, and he and Ryan Cavaline weren't far from the area. So I called them. They came out with us for a while. We were out there to get illicit Sasquatch activity. We weren't going to do it that night. We were going to start the next morning, early in the morning. And it happened. And so they managed to build my confidence up and to get us to stay out there. And then they left. And about a half hour after they left, here it comes again. Walking through the campsite. So as we're trying to decipher what's going on, Dustin had his gun. I told Dustin to shoot it because you could see it standing from the moonlight in the tree line. I said, shoot the damn thing. I'm tired of it messing with us. I've given it so many warnings. Hey, if you're a person, identify yourself, get out here, show us who you are, and, we'll get this over with. And it did nothing to the verbal warnings, and so Dustin's like, I can't shoot it. I don't know what the hell it is. I'm not going to shoot it. And I was really laying the pressure on him to shoot the damn thing. And we couldn't. So as the three of us got together, we decided we were going to bluff charge it. Right. So three of us ran towards the tree line and it ran off. Then we got back in the tent and it started to rain. So I figured, well, it's raining. Nothing's going to bother us. And sure enough, nothing bothered us for the rest of the night. But as soon as daylight hit, I think it was like 5:30, we packed everything up we had a Rubbermaid tote there. We threw everything in that Rubbermaid tote. I think we broke the tent and our fat asses hauled out of there like you wouldn't believe. And I called my wife on the way home and I said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Whatever happened to us out here last night, it scared the hell out of me. I didn't feel like it was going to hurt us, but just the fact that we had an experience, the fact that it kept coming back and that it wasn't responding to any of our identify yourself threats to harm, really, really shook me. And it took me a long time to get over that. I didn't go back out to that spot until 2016. So it took me 4 years to go back out to that area because it messed me up so bad. And I almost quit the field in general. I didn't want to do it anymore. Because I think at that point in time, I was still kind of, I don't know, what's the word? I was still kind of doubtful that this thing exists, right? And I think I was very kind of it. Keep us warm out there in the meadow. I was kind of maybe just naive to the fact that, maybe I wasn't going to have anything else happen, that we've been doing this for so long that this isn't real.
I'm sorry, Sean. You guys look a little cold, so let me put a log on the fire.
Well, it did. I tell you what, if it wasn't the warmth from the fire, it sure was from the urine in the trousers, because that was a stunning moment.
That's kind of it's kind of unnerving that this creature, or even if it was a person, would return so many times in the general area where you were in the campsite. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's like they weren't frightened to come in there with you.
Yeah, and that was what bothered me the most, Chris, was that it kept coming back. It didn't respond to any kind of threat of harm. And I think it would have been a lot different if I was by myself too. That probably would have changed the whole conditioning of the. I may have just left everything there and just got the hell out of Dodge. But I was there with my buddy Dustin, who's military trained. My brother Ray, who's a big son of a gun. He's like 6'4", 350. He's a big guy himself. So when you're there with people, you feel a little bit more like backed up and supported. But we were all
better with backup, scared. Right?
Yeah, we were all scared. In fact, we did an episode of Sasquatch Experience on it. I think it was our 16th episode of relaunching it. And I actually had them come on and tell their story for the first time because they've never talked about it publicly outside of. Because, me being the only one telling the story is not quite fair because I wasn't the only one that experienced it. You're only getting the story from my point of view, how I experienced it, right? And I wanted them to be able to share in case I either embellish something or they experience something I didn't experience. And the sad thing is, it's pretty, I don't want to say it's eidetic, but it's very similar in the recounts. Now, Ray was sleeping through a little bit more of it than the rest of us were. So he didn't experience quite as much, but, definitely had an experience out there. And then, to be frank, it's an area that had a lot of Bigfoot activity to begin with. That's why we chose that place. But in a million years, I never would have expected to have an encounter of my own out there because I had a lot of doubt up at that time. a lot of doubt. Rather, this was, real or not. I had been doing the research for a while. We were doing the podcast like candy. It was, it was getting oversaturated. And I think, just experiencing that just frightened the hell out of me, Chris. And I wanted to quit. I really did. I wanted to quit and get away from it, which is a shame because it's something I love. I love this research. I met a lot of good people in it. Steve, we have a lot of friends, Steve, that I've met through this. They're like family. And like, I was willing to give all that up because of that experience. That was the bothersome part. It just frightened me. I still get emotional thinking about it. Really. It piques me because I don't like going back to remember how I felt at that point in time.
This is kind of like that old saying, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it really was.
When you actually get that experience that you've been longing for, it may not be as pleasant as what you may have hoped. But
well, and then you have the experience, and then you talk about it, and everybody and their brother wants to give an opinion or what it was, and that's great. That's fine. That's why we share these stories. But I'm never going to be able to convey the feeling I had that evening because. Like, I don't know if words could just fully define how I felt. It's really more of a feeling. And I think if you experience something, there's like a little sense of wonder in there and a little sense of like you're taken aback. And then there's a little fear. In my part, there was a little fear. So it was different. And it's just hard to explain. And I don't know why, but I feel like it's given me a much better BS detector when I go to talk to a witness who has had an encounter. There's just something about it that you can't replicate that level of, you can't replicate that. You can't fake that feeling. You really can't. And you see it over and over in people.
Yeah, we were talking about that before, Sean. Like when somebody says that when they first saw this Bigfoot, they felt relief and no fear whatsoever, and they were happy or something. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're seeing a wild animal, something that's not supposed to exist, and it's huge, and you have no fear.
Well, it's just going to walk up to your back door and knock and ask for garlic. That's what it's going to be next. Because people that have no fear of these things, I think it's a little. And again, I don't want to make this thing out to be a monster because that's not what I'm saying. But I think with anything wild, you should have a little bit of respect and fear of what could potentially happen. Like to be ignorant and to think this thing's going to be, Harry Henderson, it's just not going to happen. And it bothers me when people are so nonchalant about it because we really shouldn't be that thing. Even if it not maybe as a Lee 3PO, I don't think Sasquatch is a wild animal, human. Well, still, even a primitive human, you should be a little afraid of. I'm afraid of some real, normal humans.
Well, and you see, I would digress because I've seen two of them, and they look nothing like a human. The full body hair, the height, the weight, the lack of a neck, its foot. Anatomy should tell you anybody that this is not a human. It has a mid-tarsal break, doesn't have an arch. There are so many physical differentiations that you can't have the same DNA as a human. Now, is it another type of hominin? Perhaps. But until we have the DNA, we really don't know.
Well, we're definitely dealing with something that has some intelligence. I think we could all at least agree that there's intelligence involved, and to the level of that intelligence, right? That's what's to be determined. But when you're talking about instinct, which is more of a, I don't know, what did you think? Instinct's not really an emotion; it's a biological hardwiring of your senses, right? That's not necessarily related to intelligence. That's instinctual. So perhaps some of the things that we experience when we run into these things is just the Bigfoot's instinct taking over. Perhaps the way we feel when we run into this thing is something that's built into our DNA through maybe experiences we've had through the years that, just it's a natural reaction. I don't know.
So
that's bothering me a little bit.
Kaiju Ninja asked a question: if you kill one, would it be considered murder? Now, here's a very interesting thing. Obviously, if it is not a Homo sapien, and the answer to that would be no. Even if they make a law up right afterwards saying it's illegal to kill one. Unless, of course, you're in the 3 communities in the United States that makes it illegal to shoot, trap, or harass a Sasquatch, such as the village of Whitehall, New York, Skamania County, Washington, such as that. But no, even if it turned out to be related to us, like really close to us, and they would give it a name of Homo something or other, it would not be considered murder because the law is not on the books. And you can't go back once that law is played. If the shooting occurs in March and then in April they do a protective law, they can't go back and charge you for what happened in March using a law that was passed in April. That's
not retroactive.
Right. It's simple legality.
Yeah, but it's like if you look at it through the Buddhist philosophy, anything that you take its life is intentionally is murder.
Yeah.
When you ate that hamburger, the other day,
yes,
technically you're a murderer because you're responsible for taking that animal's life so you could consume it. But now,
sure,
I'm not a vegan, so hey, I eat meat.
Me too. I love a nice steak and a nice burger. Moralistically, the moralistic part of it is a lot different than the legality, right? So
correct.
Right.
I agree.
That's where you got to delineate the feelings. Like, I don't know if I would want to be the one that pulled the trigger on one, but I know that we need proof. So maybe it depends on my mood that day. Maybe it depends on how I'm feeling. Maybe if I have a reaction like I had in Clearfield and I had the gun, maybe I would have popped it. There's a lot of in the moment scenarios that you just can't really think of until you're in it. And that's going to make the difference. Like, I think maybe I don't want to kill one. I really don't. But we know it's going to take a body to prove it. And so many people are going to love you and so many people are going to hate you if you're the first one to bag it.
Correct. Yep. That's the trick. Or you can be like Rick Dyer and find the bodies all over in the woods.
Yes, he's got all kinds of them.
Put them in a Ken Moore freezer.
Yeah. Or
I'm surprised he doesn't have his own warehouse of Bigfoot bodies.
He probably does. He probably does.
Don't get mad, Rick. We love you. It's okay.
Yeah. He got him at a Sears closeout sale.
Even though he did sound like a manure salesman with a mouthful of samples. So,
well,
where were we?
I believe him. I do. I believe him.
There was hands up in the air and everything there. You were really selling that one, Chris.
Remember the whole skit we used to do with the teacher? We have a Bigfoot researcher who said Bigfoot was his teacher. Remember that one, Sean?
No, I don't. Refresh me.
Tom Cantrell always said Bigfoot was his teacher and it was coming to him in his dreams.
Okay.
So me and Jeff got into this whole thing of teacher says, and it'd be really funny because, with this thing,
teacher says, never shoot at the Sasquatch. It's not nice.
Stuff like, we could have a whole day with that in the soundboard. But yeah,
that's dangerous thoughts, and I'm always careful because I try to be a lot more respectful than I used to be when I was a younger man and a little bit more ignorant and had verbal diarrhea sometimes that maybe I've grown older. Yeah. Right.
You want a PB&J sandwich.
And So, but it's just dangerous thought that, we let these people go unchecked and they can just go out and freedom of speech. I get it. But, at some point it's just so detrimental to the legitimate research. And that's the point I try to convey when I'm talking about it. I don't care what somebody believes. What I care is when they go out and they spew it like it's fact, and it takes away any credibility I also have, because now I'm lumped in with this idiot.
Sure.
Because just because you look for Bigfoot, just because you're on the search too, Steve, you're just like the guy that has it whispering it to him, telling him that you've got the thoughts in your head. And that's the part that really, really ticks me off, really gets me going. And so when I don't go after people, but when I talk about these scenarios and I get a little defensive or upset about it, it's because some of us that have been doing this for over 20 years, it cuts us off at the knees every time something happens. You get a good audience, you get people that want to listen. Right. And then you have somebody that stands up in the middle of a conference or a speaking engagement you're at and tells you she's a 25,000-year-old extraterrestrial and Bigfoot is her errand boy.
Oh my Lord. Has that actually happened to you?
That happened to me. Bill, Agents of the Unknown is in the chat. He was at that event with me, and the lady stands up at the end. It was myself, Amy Boo. And, she says she's a 25,000-year-old extraterrestrial and Bigfoot is her, essentially errand boy.
All right. Very cool.
And then, of course, any credibility we had tried to build up through that whole presentation and that whole night. And just the audience it just got pissed away.
Yes, I was there. OMG.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved to have been there. I would have loved to have seen that. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. Guess what? He says, you know what? If you can hit me up on Facebook or on email, I would love to see the recording of that.
I wonder if you could see any of our faces, like myself or Amy's face when that lady gets up. And because I was really holding it in to not be, ignorant, because this woman,
what the hell is she talking about?
It takes a lot of courage to get up in front of all those people. Courage or mental illness, I guess. I don't know, but
I'm sorry. I try to be polite and I try to show love and respect to everybody. But if somebody did that to me, Sean, I believe I would just tell her straight out, lady, you're crazy. You are crazy.
It was, we all felt it. And it just took the air, I think, right out of the room.
Well, I want to welcome Joe K to the show. I don't think we've seen him before, but welcome. And you know what? These are statements that are safe to say here. You can see that in some chat rooms, and you will get excoriated for saying there's no proof. Hey, the proof has been subjective over the last God knows how many years now. So I don't disagree with you. I feel that there is some stuff worthy of it taking a look at by science. But in reality, even the film is not evidence. It's subjective. I know Daniel Weeks is saying that the PG film, again, it's subjective. As far as experts, I don't claim necessarily to be an expert on Sasquatch, but the term expert is a frame of reference. In other words, I've been a researcher for 25 years, and if a newspaper says, oh, we talked to an expert, well, that's because they haven't been doing the research for 25 years. And I always use that example. If, you have a broken pipe at home, you call an expert a plumber. So the plumber is an expert, no doubt, right? But if you put that plumber in a convention of other plumbers, is he an expert? Well, no. So amongst the researchers, we are not experts. Amongst the lay people, the people who have no knowledge of this or are drive-bys to this or enthusiasts, we are the experts based on years behind us. Some are good experts. Some are pretty piss poor experts. And it's just a frame of reference. It's not a title. Understand that. So
now
I'll get off my soapbox. Okay.
I think you said that perfectly. And I think, to Joe in the chat, those questions and statements are valid. depending on your point of view. To some people, the evidence is apparent. I can tell you, as somebody that's been in this for over 20 years, and I think, Steve, the evidence isn't good enough. And that's where we have to work to be better. The evidence isn't good enough. And
that's why we like having people like Ben Radford and Kenny Biddle on the show.
Sure. Because
those are the guys that will tell us what we want. And yes, Joe, we get that, and we're glad you love the subject. And, truthfully, talking to Ben Radford, to Joe Nickel, to Kenny Biddle, they love the topic too. They just sit in a different stance on it. And that's, Joe Nickel and I had the greatest conversation, probably about 10 years ago. I ran into him at the Chautauqua Lake Bigfoot Expo with a year Bob Gimlin came up. And, Joe even said to me afterwards, because I just got done talking to Bob Gimlin, and he goes, it's really hard to think he's a hoaxer or trying to do anything. It's really, so he had to, you could see he was really, Bob didn't show him any disrespect and talked to him very respectfully and told him his story. And that was that.
Bob's a very charming person.
Right.
He really is a very down to earth, salt of the earth, sweet older man. He really is. And I don't think you could have a heart and go after him and be, excruciatingly ignorant to him. And, but that's also dangerous.
Here's another. And you know what? I love new folks because they have some great questions. So, Joe K., welcome to the show. Hopefully you'll subscribe and visit us, every week, because you're asking some great questions. Was finding Bigfoot show good or bad for the Bigfoot community? And I'll let all of you answer, in your own turn too, because but I'll say this: with every positive, you have to take some negative. A lot of people thought, let me bang on a tree a little bit, and that's Bigfoot back at us, or screaming and stuff like that. That's not what we do. That was the stuff they can put on air and that they edited to make it look flashy and exciting. But the cool thing about it is, and I know what Dyer had said, but I know after the first season, there was a lot of complaints about the way the show was edited. And they, as the whole foursome, said, if you continue to operate the editing this way, we are walking off the show. There will be no season 2. So that's why from season 2, it was a little bit different than the first season. I do know because I helped get some witnesses and scout a couple of locations for the show Finding Bigfoot for at least 2 or 3 episodes. And I do know, especially, that they try to do research as much as they can. Of course, they're against the clock. That people are getting paid, people got to do stuff, and they have very limited time. Hey, we need to wrap this shoot by Thursday, and then we're off to the next site. So they, but they do their best with what they can. At least, I was out in the woods, and it was kind of funny because in the one episode where they looked at the Vermont Trail Cam photo, that was the Mother Bigfoot episode. Cliff went out on his own, and I was actually out there with him for a little while. So yes, they try to, they definitely try to, what are you doing, Chris? That's really loud.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. Sorry.
Yeah, you're my so anyway, so but the one thing it did, and let me just go back to the question, was it good or bad? Yes, it had that negative effect. I think Bigfoot researchers just knocking trees, screaming a little bit, and some crazy pranks like let's shoot up some fireworks or whatever. But the positive side is it did not make Bigfoot a 4-letter word anymore. People were more open to talk about it, because it's being broadcast every week to people's millions of homes. So, Well, Chris, you want to go next, and then we'll go to Sean.
Well, I just think the show brought awareness. It brought awareness to the subject, and that's good. It put it out there and let everybody know that, hey, this is a mainstream thing, and if you've seen something, say something. You don't have to hide it. And a lot of people were able to come forward and say, about 10 years ago, I was hunting and I seen something that I just can't explain. But before they'd been reluctant to talk about it, so it brought some awareness, and I think that was good about it. But as far as being a research model, no, I know. They would go out in the woods in different locations and tap the tree. Oh yeah, okay, we can say there's a Squatch in these woods, and then that's it. They're off to another state. That's totally fine. But
and I just want to throw this out there. We're going to have a question, another question from Joe K, and I want to thank him. He just actually donated to our channel, so he's enjoying the show, and
appreciate it, bud.
Thank you much. Sean, you.
Just like Chris said, and you said, it brought awareness to something, gave it a little bit more of a positive light, right? It wasn't looked at more of like a sideshow anymore. I think a lot of us also benefited from it in an ancillary way, that maybe we weren't on the Finding Bigfoot show, but definitely the conversation of Bigfoot was happening a lot more. And then in our various areas, people realized that, hey, I have my own local expert. Let's talk to this person. And then some of us are getting, speaking engagements and stuff. So it's interesting to see how it kind of benefited everybody in the community that was worth benefiting. It was entertainment, hands down, right? I used to call the show Probably Never Finding Bigfoot because it had to go on to the next show over and over and over again. I think 10 seasons is a long time. 10 seasons is a lot of TV, but did it show us in always a serious light? No, it didn't. And, the absolute certainty, that some of us have when we go out there and Squatches or Bigfoots and, saying definitively they're there. I think it's, it's just foolish. But again, that's TV and it's ratings. That's what they want. So that's what you do.
And that was the one good point Dyer made today was, TV shows are a whole nother, it's almost like he's been listening to my shows, because I've said the same thing, is that TV shows are one thing because they need to keep that audience coming back week to week versus your documentaries where they try to get to the bones of things.
Discovery doesn't care if they find Bigfoot. Discovery cares how much Tide's going to pay them to run commercials during that TV show.
Yeah.
And Joe's next question, great show, and we appreciate again the donation. When do you think Todd Standing will pull his next hoax video? I can't tell you. I don't know. You never know with him. He's very unpredictable. He's very secretive. So it's really hard to say when. He's actually more of a challenge than Dyer is, to tell you the truth.
Because he has a way of getting some people to think he's credible.
Well, because he studied the topic.
Yeah, and that's when you can get someone like him to start getting people like Les Stroud and others to lend themselves to you and try to increase your own credibility. That gets a little dangerous for people because now, like, they see you with Survivor Man, they obviously think he knows what he's doing when he's out in the woods. Just adds a little bit more credibility to the person. And as we talked before we went on the air here, I told you one of the more dangerous things that's happening in the field is how people can go out and say whatever they want to unvetted, and some people grab it and hold it to the gospel.
Sure.
And there's not a lot of critical thought anymore, and that's definitely something that will never change because it's something we've battled forever. It's just something we have to combat when we run into it the best we can. That's what gets dangerous. So people like Todd Standing continue to get away with what they get away with because some of you are gullible. That's just how it is. Some of you will believe anything.
And I really think that, they picked Standing because he was a Canadian and so is Les Stroud. I don't think of any other reason why. because obviously they saw what was said about him online. You know, I don't know
memory serves,
unless you're
Stephen,
under a rock.
I think Les did say a small disclaimer about some of Standing's
Correct.
evidence about some people have questioned. You know, it was something of that nature. It was just to let everybody know that some people don't feel real good about his evidence.
And I forget the term. And talking with Jeff Meldrum about it. It was some term he used. I forgot what he, it's, he goes, I did have something happen to me that could have been a Bigfoot experience when I was with them. But, Todd took us there, but even, it's like, if you cast a net in the ocean, you're bound to catch something at some point in time, or something similar to that effect. It wasn't that exact paraphrase, but it was a similar type of analogy. And so there's no doubt in my mind that he is very suspect of a lot of Todd's things. So, but as a scientist, he is the guy who kind of just, plays. I'm not going to lower myself to, I'm just going to put out what's true and let the rest slide by. And, that's his prerogative. And,
Sure,
we could be doing that too, if we wanted to. We could be, and there's a lot of channels out there. They talk about Bigfoot, but they don't talk about the bad stuff. So.
Well, a lot of people today, though, don't have the history that some of us do with it.
Right.
Let's be honest. Some of these folks that are, I'm not talking crap on anybody. They just haven't had the experiences some of us have had. And, especially we hit this field, Steve, at the time where the internet was coming to fruition. Bigfoot websites started popping up. YouTube started popping up. Videos were coming out. We were really getting a lot of information thrown at us from many different avenues. And there were a lot less of us back then going through it. And hell, we couldn't get along back then with each other about things. So they haven't been able to get along since they've started this research. But with the advent of the internet and all this information flying at us, we were able to start using the internet as a good tool and help us start going through and debunking or, dispelling a lot of this stuff that was coming at us. I think the thing that's funny is we see all these Bigfoot videos that have come out since Patterson-Gimlin, and they've all been worse.
Yeah.
In the days of today's technology and what we have, everything has been worse than the Patterson film. So we question the Patterson. I don't know how somebody could look at the Patterson film and say it's a hoax, and then look at one of these videos that are out on YouTube and be so diehard that that's a legitimate thing. I don't understand it.
Right. And look at the dichotomy of a Rick Dyer, who goes on the show and says, well, Bob Hieronymus passed a lie detector test. And then we talk a little bit later on, and he makes the statement, lie detectors aren't admissible in court, aren't they, Steve? So there you have it. And I kind of purposely set him up to make that, dichotomy there to, contradict himself. His strongest piece is that, Bob Hieronymus passed the lie detector test, but then in summation, he says, why aren't they admissible in court? Because they're not accurate.
Listen, there's serial killers that could pass a lie detector test too.
Exactly.
You just have to be a sociopath to pass it. That's it.
Well, the other thing too is, and I made this analogy as well. He was like, why doesn't Bob Gimlin take the test? Because it doesn't matter. And he says, because it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter because he's been telling this story for so long that if he gets on a lie detector test, it's going to come out to be truth, regardless if it's a lie or not.
Yeah. And I think people forget that.
Right. And that is just, hey, listen, he can say what he wants, but I'm the guy who studies this. I'm the guy whose profession is part of a polygraph exam sometimes. Not that I've ever given one, but I know some of the basics. I'm a trained forensic interviewer. And, so we'll see. Only time will tell. Everything, everything is,
You got to work with that guy on the NatGeo Loch Ness special too.
Yes, David Bird was his name.
David Bird. Okay.
Yeah, and he was great guy. He actually was born in Nambia, in Africa. For those who don't know,
your atlases, folks.
Yeah, 34 years with Scotland Yard. And then when he was done with that, he went to Canada and went to this Canadian Training Academy for polygraphy. And he is called out all over Europe to administer lie detector tests. And actually, about 2 months previous to coming on the NatGeo special, he had actually given a lie detector test to an alleged serial killer in Belgium. So that's how, wanted this guy is. So it's really top-notch guy. And we had a long talk about forensic interviewing and all that stuff. And I got the gist on, how he explains the polygraph exam. And I'll tell you what, he says, he's explaining this. He says, and he just threw out this question that caused me to trip up. And that's how good he is at putting people, under the gun. Wow. And it was like, when you were married, have you ever thought of another woman? And that was back when. It was like, oh, wow, that is a really sweaty question.
Yeah. What do you say?
Yeah,
never.
What do you say to that? No,
never. I've never thought about another woman while I'm married,
That happens. It's natural. So yeah, it tell you about, he knew the right question to throw at people just to get them off kilter to see how a lie detector test can work. And so just understand that, from forensic interviewing, I know the fact that it doesn't work on people if you're not, like, for example, Chris can say, well, I know what the forensic interview is, and I would pass that in a heartbeat. Well, you're not guilty of anything I'm going after you for, so of course you would, right? But when you have this crime in the back of your head or this deed in the back of your head, and you get sat down and put, as long as you're not a sociopath, which I think tonight really shined through with a particular person.
Yeah.
You will break them.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. Like with people like sociopaths, right? The guilt has no effect.
And Joe's paying for questions. You don't have to pay for questions, Joe, but we appreciate that. We appreciate that. Have you ever talked to Ken Walker, the taxidermist? I have not. I don't know if Ken Walker is.
Is that the one that worked with Todd Standing?
Well, the one he stole the area off of, I believe.
Well,
yeah.
I was trying to be polite.
Yep. Yep.
Tell it like you see it, Steve.
Can't say I have, but I would love to talk to him. If you can put us in contact, that would be awesome. Yeah.
How much of the questions cost? $5.99. $5.99.
They know he's being generous, and that's why I was like, you don't have to pay for questions, but we appreciate the tip. But so up now we're talking. The chat has gone wild with, Barb. You must have a crush on an actor who.
New-time listeners can ask for free.
I think about Lisa. So we've started.
I'm a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fan, so I appreciate that.
Yes, and now we're the Real Housewives of Squatchdom or something.
Squatchdom. That would be a hell of a show.
Yes.
Imagine the significant others of people that are involved in this field and how they've been tortured over the years.
Well, wasn't it, what's his name from down in Florida? He had the wife swap show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. And that was something else. Oh, and Kaiju Ninja says, I would watch that.
Yeah.
Oh, what's he? Oh, there's Steve again out there whittling on his tree knocker. He's getting ready to knock a tree. There he is, knocking on the tree.
Love it.
My wife could not care less about Bigfoot.
No,
She don't want to know if it's real or not. She don't want to know if it's out there. She would rather remain, blissfully oblivious to the knowledge of Bigfoot, whether it's real or not.
Sorry about the glare, folks. It's getting a little hot under the lid here.
Well, they're either going to get it off your head or off my chin, so one or the other.
So Ken Walker was the first person to talk to Justin after the shooting. He was in a documentary called Big Fur. Interesting.
I've seen that. Big Fur. Interesting. I don't think it. I don't know. I think he takes taxidermied animals and makes like a Sasquatch out of it. If I remember, if that's what I watched correctly.
Very interesting. I wonder if that has anything to do with Todd Standing.
Big Fur doesn't sound appropriate. It's kind of like, those people that take the deer asses and make them into Sasquatches. Sasquatches. They're terrible.
It's a new one on me. I've seen a jackalope though. Yeah.
A jackalope. Yeah. They're more prevalent than you think.
Or the bull balls on the trailer hitch.
That used to be a common thing around here. I don't know. It's kind of went away though. I think it lost its appeal.
It's kind of a fetish, I think. Some people like that. Why would you want to put a pair of, I don't know,
nuts on your truck? Truck nuts, right? Is that what
Can't
they were?
imagine it.
If you're going to put them on your truck, drive like you got a pair. That's all I'm saying.
And why would you put them in the back of the truck?
Yeah. Truck nuts.
I want people to see me coming.
Brass balls, yeah. Brass balls were a thing.
He made a patty. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. He made a Sasquatch out of animal skin.
It's interesting. To write that
animal
down.
Fur.
Big Fur documentary. Okay.
It's been a while since I've seen it. I think it might be on YouTube or it might be on Tubi.
Okay, check it out. Homework assignment, people.
Yeah.
Big Fur.
Big Fur. Not Bigfoot, Big Fur.
Big Fur.
Well, any speculation on what Dyer's going to do next, Steve?
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's gonna another hoax is brewing. Another hoax is brewing.
I will take him at his word, though. I will not believe him.
No, and you shouldn't. And you shouldn't.
The San Antonio Bigfoot thing. You remember where the people living in the tent took a picture
behind the old Home Depot? Yep.
Yeah. Was he involved in that?
Yes.
I thought so. Okay. Yeah. I have to go back a few years, folks, and think about these things.
The troll wanted me to ask him the tough questions. I did. I asked him questions that were tough. He made a claim. I asked a question. Well, who's the production company? Well, yeah. And then he realized that he messed up, that it wasn't the network that was sending him or the network approaching him. It was a production company. So, he likes to blow it up.
Inflate things.
Right. And he obviously doesn't understand is that once a video is, it's completed, it needs to be sold to the production company. Or it needs to be sold rather to the network.
Yeah, they shop it around.
They have to shop it around. They may have already done a sizzle reel with him and somebody said, oh yeah, we'll buy it. But that's the actual methodology of how it happens. They just don't say, oh yeah, we want to film with this guy. I did a
sizzle reel with Butch Wachowski and
God rest
Lon
his soul.
Strickler. Yeah, and Lon Strickler. That was the show was going to be called Cryptid Hunters. That's how they promoted it. And they shopped it around. It never went anywhere. But it was fun to do. I had a lot of fun just being a part of that and seeing it go in a complete different direction than what the producers had in mind, because they sat Butch, myself, and Lon. They let us sit down at a table and the things we just started talking about, and the conversation just went wild. And they shot so much footage of us. I wish they'd send that to us now. Butch isn't with us anymore, so
Yeah,
it'd have been nice to have that. But it was a lot of fun filming that. I had a lot of fun that day.
yeah. I remember I got sent in a sizzle reel with Ben Radford of all people, and we and Fernando Moriera, a tracker, and it was another crypto guy from Wisconsin. I forget his name, Jeff something or other. That never went anywhere either. We actually filmed it in Kentucky, of all places, and because I remember talking to Chris, and we were going to meet up at the hotel, but there was a horrible ice storm that night. Yeah. But yeah, that and it happens. I don't even know what the name of that show was going to be. I've done probably about 4 sizzle reels, but the problem is a lot of times they don't want fact. They don't want to hear this is not real. This is possibly something else. They don't want to hear that. What they want to hear is, oh my gosh, what do we got? Whoa, look at that. Again, it's for a series, not a documentary.
Yeah, because you go out in the woods with us and do a real investigation. It's boring.
Right.
Well,
9 times out of 10, it's boring.
Yeah, that's like why Finding Bigfoot had the little controversy during season 1 because of the horse thermal. Matt and all of them knew it was a horse,
right.
But when the production company, when they put it together and editing, made it out to be like, we got
right.
Squatch thermal. They kind of left it open to interpretation when it was not. And Matt came clean and said, hey, we knew specifically this was a horse.
And he was so angry about that as well.
Yeah, he was mad about that. I don't blame him.
Well, some of them still have a reputation in the field they got to maintain too. You're still active, involved in the research. You don't want to throw away your credibility with the people that are actually involved with it, because you have to work with this after all this shit's gone. Right after all that stuff's said and gone and the TV shows are gone, you have a base that you've got to go back to. And you have to answer to us. Or more so Steve anymore than me. I'm, just sit in the background with a baseball bat.
I sit up front with the baseball bat.
I just take him out at the knees every once in a while. That's what I do. Because there's just so much you got to go after anymore. That's the problem. You really got to pick it. Like you're just talking about that video that you debunked, last night or the night before. And it didn't take you long to do that. But you almost have to have this stuff on, instant recall to go after it all. Because there's so much. Lon Strickler posted a video at Phantoms and Monsters the other day of a guy from Vermont that, to me, it's a guy in the suit. His reaction isn't even genuine, but some people gravitate to that. And, honestly, when you're running this as a business, you got to get the clicks, right? You got to put the fantastic stuff up there with the boring stuff, or nobody's going to read the real stuff. To most people, when there's not a lot of extraneous, activity or over embellished details, it's not interesting. It's boring. And so you put the sizzle in there to get them there for them to read the other stuff. That's why it's taken me so long to write my book, because there's so much stuff that we could talk about that unless you're an insider, you probably wouldn't get some of the, inside stuff. But in all the years that some things have happened that have been exciting, there's so many years, nothing's happened and it's been boring. Now you make up for that boredom with the people you're out in the field with, the conversation, the camaraderie, all the things associated with it. But when it comes down to the actual brass tacks of things that happen, 9 times out of 10, it's a quiet night, silent. And that's the reality of research, Cajun Ninja. It's not the reality of research.
Take a look at
we bring that. We have to make that known that it is sometimes a very boring and grueling search.
Sure. Let me show you to just one of the debunkings that as part of that video, and of course I was using the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization's video, which they inverted for whatever reason, which they shouldn't have. If you're a research organization, why are you putting out stuff that's been altered? Mm-hmm. But anyway, here's just part of that. As the boat approaches, there it is coming out from the clearing and into the other side of the brush. And then there is a little shake of the camera. Now, I don't know if that's intentional or was it done to add some effect like they were shot. Exactly. Did one not think know. that if it came out first as you're videotaping, the shake would be right there, but it's not. So I don't know what it is. It could have been just a boat wave, but it just seems a little peculiar that there's a shake after it just disappears, and then there's the shake. So maybe the guy was adjusting his position. I don't know. So the next thing I want to look at is the step count of the creature while it's in the clearing and doing some calculations.
You know, to me, Chris, that looks like it's very deliberate walking.
So what we did here is we took a blow up of the unsub in the video, and we took the height measurement of it using an arrow, and then we copied that arrow, same size, and we hypothetically said this could be a 10-foot Sasquatch, 9-foot, 8-foot, 7-foot, 6-foot. And then what we did is we took copies of that same size arrow and laid them along the clearing to give us a rough estimate of how wide apart that clearing is. And it could be anywhere from 30 feet to 18 feet, depending on the height of the subject. Now, I think 10 foot and 9 foot is kind of extreme, but I wanted to put those numbers out there just to show the average step or average, gait of the creature. And as we look, if this is an 8-foot creature, then the clearing is only 24 feet wide, and that seems kind of reasonable. So if we look at, by taking that number of steps, we can get an average step length by looking at the particular clearing, and then we can take that clearing size and knock it down to inches and then put it into what the average step length it would be. And as you can see, for an 8-foot Sasquatch, it would be only 32 inches. For a 7-foot, only 28 inches. And for a human, only 24. Now, understand terrain can also have an impact on your average stride as well. However, the Patterson-Gimlin film is in actuality has a much larger gait at 51.74 inches, so almost 52 inches. If the Patterson-Gimlin film is real, that stride was a lot bigger than this, and one would think that an 8-foot Sasquatch could do a little bit better than a 32-inch step when the average human step is 30 inches. And there you have it.
And I would like to add, Steve, that at the end of the trackway, when the creatures started picking up speed on the Patterson-Gimlin film, those tracks were measured out at 65 inches. The width of the step.
Yeah.
So when she started, or he, or whatever was shown in the video, started picking up speed, it went from 50-some inches to 65 inches. Between the heel to the toe. That's a bunch.
Well, here is, we got a question. Is the original video on Mountain Man's channel? No. Absolutely not. The actual video was dropped on October 5th. And I know who it is. I know the channel. I know who it is, the person. And the interesting thing is I've asked that person twice now to reach out to me on the comments. And both times those comments have been deleted.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I emailed the guy at work because I have his work email address. So I'll see if he answers that. So that should answer that question. But
you've reached out. I mean, you've done what you could do. You've reached out if you don't want to get back with you.
Now, Joe K makes a great point. Why was it filming in that particular area? So I'm going to pull up this graphic that's part of the video, which actually will show the boat wake. So there you have it. I'm going to bring that up. As you can see, the predictive cameraman is what I call it.
Yeah.
It's facing to the port as it's first going. And then slowly it goes to center. And then as the boat crosses the threshold of the clearing, the camera moves to the starboard side all before the creature makes its appearance, the unsub makes its appearance. Now, here's a very other interesting thing. If you look right here,
So
that's the boat wake. So it had come from right there. Now, somebody had asked or made a statement earlier or on the original video was, I don't think a person would be able to get that close to the edge there, all this wonderful stuff. But the video you've seen from the RMSO is edited, so it's been cut short. I'm not sure about the Mountain Man one either, but the channel that the original channel is the unedited version, and he actually comes with audio, comes really close to that shoreline. So there it is within 20, 30 feet. If you look off to the left, that's even closer. That may be like 20 feet, if that. Looks very shallow. Somebody could get in the boat, walk onto the land, vice versa. So to me, it's very clear what all this is.
I think the way it walks is very deliberate and trying.
Well, the reason
briefly that you can see it.
The reason why I put those sounds in there was so people could hear the. It wasn't walking at a cadence like you see the PG film. Everybody's trying to say, "Oh, this thing looks like the PG film." It looks nothing like it. The PG film was boom, 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 boom.
It looks like someone trying to walk like a Sasquatch across.
Correct.
And like if you look, it almost looks like he's looking down. It looks like it's looking down at his feet as he's trying to move across that in some instances.
Right. And I'm not necessarily sure what that question is. Is there a pattern of filming in this manner? Right. I agree. It's very convenient that it appears in the clearing just at the right time and distance. Even more so is the audio in the video where he's saying, "Oh, so-and-so, you wanted to see the lake? Well, here's the lake." And, there's your excuse why he was filming. But why did he abruptly end the filming? Why didn't he add some more to it?
And that's always the thing.
Yeah.
There's never enough.
And you're right. The arm movements were off. It also kind of took a very small step, almost like, oh. So.
Yeah. It's hard to get excited about this stuff anymore. And this is why. Because the mind instantly goes to, well, how can we debunk this? And I think, Steve, it's very healthy to have that.
Now, I know some people saying this is a current. It's not a current. The boat actually makes the turn and goes basically right back to where you see that current. It's not a current.
No,
there's no way.
That clearly looks like wake. It looks like it's cutting through the current.
Correct.
It definitely is boat wake.
Plus the prop,
right.
Prop
and it's not going super fast either. The boat actually, if you watch the original, you actually see the speedometer, and it's only going 15 knots. So it's not going very fast at all.
Well, with something like this, you can either like it or not. And I don't really like this one.
And I agree, my eyes. We can disagree, but if you watch the motion of the boat, that's where it came from. So it's. I don't see any waves emanating from that flat water. If you watch the video, it looks like it's just the wake of the boat, and it's not a big.
It looks like it comes from the shoreline around and then up into the path he's taking.
Right. It's actually taking. You see that curve, and it curves to where the boat was just traveling. So, regardless, the video, the gate step, if you don't like that point, the gate step is really, the step length is usually a really big indicator. And the fact that the submitter keeps deleting my request to have a contact with them. So let's see if tomorrow
this could have just been a couple of guys with a ghillie suit out on the boat and on the lake. So maybe a little joke, and maybe it grew legs. Who knows?
Oh no, I think it's a Bigfoot costume. I really do.
You think so?
Yep. I just do. And the thing about it's the month of October. Even though it was October 5th, it's Halloween month.
Yeah.
It's also the holiday of the Patterson Gimlin film. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things going on in October. So
Very possible.
Yeah, well, and Thinker Thunker also put the Sasquatch up a tree. Like, how many Bigfoot can stand on top of one another? But that's neither here nor there. And I can't necessarily say for.
Sean had a good point. It looks like a deliberate walk, like a forced walk. Yeah. It doesn't look like it's a fluid movement of something moving. And I just have this own personal belief. If there was a Bigfoot over there in those trees, it would not wait for the boat to appear and then walk across the opening. It would stay right beside one of those trees and watch that boat from a distance, never moving. I just don't believe that's the correct behavior for a Bigfoot. Well, I'm not an expert. I'm a hillbilly, but
a boat being that loud too, it's loud, so you could.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Sean? Yeah, you're shaking your head. Nope.
Yeah, no, definitely. Nope. I had seen it briefly before I saw you post that you were going to go over it. And this is the first time I've seen your debunk in full, because I saw just a snippet of it last night or the night before, whenever you posted it. And like I was saying to Chris when you were playing it, that walk just does it for me. That just puts it off. Yeah. And what's kind of sad is it makes me go back and rethink the Freeman video in the way that creature moves too. So I don't know. I've always liked the Freeman video.
As did I.
Yeah. And that something always seemed a little bit off about that one too, but I've always liked it.
If you know the guy, does he have social media? Does he follow the Bigfoot community? No, not a bit. In fact, on that particular channel he released it on, there was only 4 other videos, and that was a post-hockey game party that was 10 years ago. If I'm not correct, then they have even been when the Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup.
We talk about steps, Steve. I think it's in the first episode or 2 of Sasquatch Unearthed, The Ridge, right? I walk across the road and somebody asked me how many steps it took me to get across the road. And I clearly wasn't paying attention when I just bullshitted an answer. And as I watched that, I went right back, as I'm watching, I went right into the comments and corrected myself right away. You don't think about the little things like that attack your own credibility. He can't even count his own damn steps across. I wasn't paying attention. To be quite honest, I wasn't paying attention. I was just bullshitting an answer, and it bit me in the ass. Yeah.
In other words, you're going to fail horribly at any sobriety test if you ever get pulled over.
Oh yeah, that was. Well, this road they had us cross. It's a busy road. If anybody's been on that stretch, it's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, and people go through that at 65. And it's the place where the ambulance drivers, the paramedics, had their encounter. As earlier in the evening, 5 or 6 o'clock it was a little darker than probably 7 or 8 o'clock. Seth and I and the team are out there, and these people we're clearly walking along the side of the road. These people just zooming by at 65 miles an hour. I was more worried about getting killed. I wasn't counting my steps as I was crossing the street,
And there's some questions about the channel. And no, the channel is not monetized. He doesn't have a lot of followers. And surprisingly, the video's got 38,000 views as of this morning. So people know that this is the website to watch, or at least some people. It doesn't appear to be a money motive here. I think he was just trying to, if you listen to the little speech he's making as he's driving the boat, I just wanted to show you the lake. Oh, what's that? Maybe he was trying to pull a prank on his girlfriend or his significant other. I don't know. Or maybe a coworker. I'm not sure. Because this man has no social media footprint. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all blank for the actual guy. So
could just be somebody trying to make a Bigfoot video just to see how far they could for shits and giggles. Honestly,
it doesn't really say that. I don't see that just by the comments. There aren't many comments left on his thing, and there's one that says, "Oh man, there was a comment that said, yeah, if this was real, you would allow comments on the video." And that was on the next video. So you look at people are commenting on the Bigfoot video on the hockey videos, the hockey party videos. And then this person chimes in, and that's how I got his real name. That said, well, I really don't use YouTube all that much or something similar. And I think I fixed it, but he didn't. And the fact is that I think he played this as a prank for local. And he didn't expect it to go thanks to the mountain man. And then eventually the RMSO and snagging that, reversing it and saying, oh, the witnesses are unidentified. And boaters, like there's multiple people, and then they mute the sound on it, they flip it, and then they come up with a story. They say, oh, well, the witnesses are unidentified. Yeah. And how the hell would you get? Yeah.
It got picked up on the Coast to Coast feed too, didn't it?
Yeah. And it's nothing but a clickbait. And I'm just wondering why it was reversed, because you don't want that copyright hit. That's why.
Yeah, that's why it was reversed. You didn't want to have to be forced to take it down.
Right. Even though if you did a real investigation and a real analysis, you couldn't get it taken down. So.
It would have, fair use.
As well, yeah, especially when you're trying to, use it for educational purposes.
Yeah, but there's no graphic or nothing, just him slowing it down a little bit and zooming in on it, saying, oh, well, it looks like the Patterson-Gimlin film. Look at that. Yeah, and it's nothing like it at all. Maybe the overall shape of the creature, but no.
I don't know what kind of video it would take at this point to, convince everybody that this thing's real. It would have to be something spectacular to get my attention, to make me really want to support it. Like we're talking National Geographic, multiple camera angle, more than 15-second video clip.
Right. I agree.
Something screaming at the camera where you could see the inside of its mouth. That would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kaiju Ninja says maybe 4K National Geographic maybe would.
Yeah.
But you got to understand they set up for weeks on their shot. It takes them weeks to get what they need and set a lot of cameras up and let them roll and a lot of review of film footage and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Well, it used to be to film in high definition. It used to be like a dual camera setup, right? They'd run or what? No, wait a minute. That may have been 3D.
That was 3D, I think.
Yeah, you got to have two cameras going. Yeah, I should know better than that. For 4K, I use my iPhone.
Hey, there was a time when to carry all this equipment around, you had to have a backpack full and extra arms and everything else. Now you have your iPhone, man. So much, you got your voice recorder, you got your camera, you got your video camera, everything right in one. And it's
very handy thing to have in your pocket, especially when you're out somewhere. You can get some really, really good quality video. I mean, provided you can get a subject to film, you can get some good quality video.
Well, hell, Fleur is making an attachment for the iPhone. You plug it into the lightning port and you can get some, sort of thermal on there. So, I mean, the accessibility is there, but it's also, when you talk about like National Geographic, that's still photography as an art. That's still videography as an art. Most of us aren't trained to use a camera the way they could be fully designed to. That takes effect of it as well. Like to get a camera that, really would be definitive with flowing hair, to get a picture of it, that would take a lot. I'm not that talented with photography.
Oh, it's to get a great shot. You can't just point and shoot. There's got to be you're adjusting your focal length. And
but that's what 90% of us are going to do, right? We're just going to have on our phone trying to keep it in focus.
Right.
to get some real, stellar photographers involved would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But again, that equipment's expensive too. Those aren't cheap.
That's the thing. In 2010, I started off, I had a little pocket camcorder. I think I paid like $30 for it or something like that. And I thought, oh gosh, it was 640 by 480. And I thought, wow, man, I have arrived. I've got this cool stuff. And, unfortunately, I lost some really good opportunities to make good video because of that crappy camera. And I went out and bought at this time it was a Sony Handycam, little hard drive camera, and it was 1080, it's HD camera. I thought, oh, this is good, man. I'm going to go out. I'm going to get it this time, and it's going to be clear and no.
And they took the night shot off it. They took the night shot feature away.
Oh, mine didn't have that. Yeah, it didn't.
Yeah. They stopped putting it on the cameras after. I had a digital high 8 to tape camcorder that still had the night shot feature. I think it was one of the last generations that had it, and they put it into their digital cameras for a little while, and they took that out. So I guess Paris Hilton ruined the night shot for everybody.
The Sony cameras are, I always had problems with Sony video cameras. They did not play well transferring them to any computer at all. Really frustrating.
Yeah, it's supposed to be HD, and there's a lot of pixels. It's not,
well, a lot of people are using an SLR camera now for video and photography. Yep. So some of them are using them as their web cameras when they're doing their webcasting. So, I mean, a lot of versatility comes from that. But again, you start getting into lenses. Some of the lenses you would need for some of that National Geographic photography, $10,000, $20,000 lenses.
Surely. Geez, I wonder if Matt was, who's a good person to talk is Matt Larson from Central Florida, Bigfoot. Yeah. He's the guy to talk to about photography and what, gimbals and all that fun stuff.
Cameras and gimbals. Yes, sir. Yep. He introduced me to the gimbal. I just felt that's amazing. He was walking along, and this footage was just rock steady, and he's walking along holding this thing in his hand,
that's the fun of it, right? Learning, we're learning a lot through these folks. My friends at the Small Town Monsters, whenever I'm with them, I'm always seeing what kind of gear they're using and how they're how they plan on getting some of the good shots that they get. Drones, that's another thing. Drones, man, like they're all over, but they're not getting much luck with them out there either, are they? They make a lot of noise for a little thing that flies.
And they don't take the wind all that well either. And the canopies don't help. And the landing zones in the middle of the forest, they're all very difficult things to overcome. Their need for some B-roll though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Getting advanced now though, that you can, like yours, Steve, you could fly it, you use your phone and stuff and take off and whatever. The first time I tried to fool with my son's drone, I crashed it. So I'm not good at flying those things. But now if I had something I could punch a button, okay, take off. That it takes off and hovers. Okay, that's cool. I can punch a button.
Yeah, that's always the answer I have to that question when, folks ask that one is, with all the technology and cell phones, why isn't there better evidence? Well, again, it goes back to how we use it. And do we really know how to use it? And it's a skill. It's not just something everybody can do. GoPros, the issue I had with GoPros, Kaiju Ninjas in there saying, is the battery life was terrible when I was in my GoPro mode.
Well, it's the big kicker always to me is you see a Bigfoot. First time seeing a Bigfoot, you ain't thinking about the camera.
No.
You're not thinking about the camera. You're thinking about
what
the hell am I seeing? Yeah, what the hell am I seeing? It takes that time for a person to respond to what they're seeing, just like any kind of thing. Like there's all of a sudden you see a fire and you stop for a second and go, what am I going to do? And then your mind is quickly processing the plan of action. So, yeah, it's...
and not counting the shakes you get,
the shakes and...
the natural reactions to stress.
Yeah.
Yep, and Bill Rigby, hello. And you're absolutely right. Welcome to the show, Bill. Good to see you. Same thing with Dinosaur Hunter. I mean, these are a few folks we haven't seen the show before in chat. So good to see you. Cell phones focused on the nearest object like a leaf. I said that all the time. People, why are Bigfoot pictures always so blurry? Well, because, you have them on autofocus. That's how these things are rigged up to be. They're on autofocus. So they're going to, I remember doing stakeouts, and if it's a rainy day and I got that camera rolling, and the minute the windshield wipers go through or a drop of rain hits that windshield, out of focus. Again. Yep.
I just learned you could change the features on the camera on the iPhone. And I'm a pretty tech savvy guy, and I just learned that you can go into the settings and manipulate it and change features. So that was pretty,
same thing with
I've been using the damn thing right out of the box. I haven't played with any of that. Now that I know how, look out. Here's going to be more tilted selfies I take.
Well, you know more than me, Sean, because all I do is I can turn the camera on and I can set for what setting, HD or whatever, then push the little red button, and then that's it.
But if you can get that down to a reflex, where you could do that without thinking and looking, you might be one step closer.
That would be good.
Now, I will say this. If you have a cameraman in the woods that doesn't believe in Bigfoot at all, and they're just behind the lens, they may be able to get a shot of it. And then, what did I just videotape? But I don't know. I think that, that's why photographs, we shouldn't bank on a good photograph. We shouldn't bank on a good audio because you can't see what made it. You can't bank on, DNA without proper collection. So I think, and even now they're trying to test eDNA. And, we've seen CGI Bigfoots out there before. Talking about it's easier to CGI UFO right now. Absolutely. Because think about the reason why. Because when you're trying to CGI a living, breathing creature, it's very difficult to get that flowing motion.
And it still looks CGI.
Yeah.
No matter how good they get it. Disney, right, Steve? When they did, what's his name? Tarkin and Rogue One, right?
Yes.
The actor's been dead for how many years? They put a stand in, but even the face still doesn't match the words. No matter how good it is, it's still CGI. And Disney can't get it right yet to that perfection. What makes you think one of us are going to be able to do it?
Right. Right. Or one of the hoaxers, actually. You're going to get it right. It's like we hear a lot of conversation about the Independence Day video with the Bigfoot holding the baby, and to me that looks like CGI. It moves not flowingly, it moves kind of jerky to me. It has no startup. Think about it.
The resolution is just bad on that to begin with, isn't it? Like it's pixelated.
A little bit. I think the startup time on that, you just don't automatically start running at 40 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour. You don't go from 0 to 40 in an instant. You can't do that with a motor vehicle. You can't do that running. So,
a good friend of mine is a photographer of eagles up in the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon, the Pine Creek Gorge. Takes a lot of photographs of eagles and a great camera, good setup. And driving down back to home one night, he has a roadside encounter. Runs across the street in front of him. He stops. I can tell you what this wasn't. Gets out. Tries to see in the field where this thing went. Can't find it. But he's a photographer. right? And his first instinct, when he was saying is, I don't know why I didn't try to get a picture of it. I don't know why. It just took me off guard, right? And this is somebody that's taking photographs of eagles. You got to be pretty sharp on that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's the mind at work, because it's trying to figure out, what the hell did I just see? If it's not in your catalog up here, your mind's got to go, well, what could it be?
Yeah, and there's a difference too between having a roadside encounter like that when you're not no way expecting anything to happen,
right?
Than a Bigfoot researcher that's out walking in the woods, hoping and praying to get a video.
Yeah,
I had an action cam sitting in, or some sort of camera in my pocket when I had my first sighting. I forgot all about it. Did not once think about it. It was like, oh, well. But it wouldn't have reached anyway. The night vision wouldn't have reached the 100-foot there that I was away from it. But, still, it was, I didn't even think of it. And then again, I also said I froze, because I said, the minute I move, it's going to take off.
Yeah.
And I just like, oh. So you always, almost every encounter is by accident. Barb Santi made that comment. Thanks for swinging in today too, Barb.
Hey, Barb.
So yeah. Well, we got about 9 minutes left to show, and it's been, Sean, I love talking with you, man, because we've been down that road together for so long.
Many times. I love it. I always love my trips over to Squatch-D TV.
And my God, have you heard from the wonderful Mr. May lately?
Oh, I talk to Henry every other Monday night. We still do Sasquatch Experience together. So I talk to Henry. He's been doing a lot of reading. He always posts his book reviews, and one of the things we get from listeners the most is, what's Henry reading? So we just started a little segment called What's Henry Reading? And folks like his review. Although he's getting a little soft in his old age, because he hasn't given a book a bad review yet. So I'm waiting for that.
Wait till my next book. He can give that one back.
Yeah.
I enjoy Henry's videos. He usually puts out one a week or so, and usually it's about Loch Ness sightings or something interesting.
Let me. This is my book review. I'm sitting here looking at my folder, and let me read this. And
you're gonna review your own book.
Gotta love it.
Oh yeah, okay. There you go.
But while I'm sitting there reading the book review, and not like Henry hasn't been caught doing this before on air. I remember
Never
the
forget
time
that night.
Henry was on the gray zone, or the gray with
gray
noodles,
the gray area with Melissa Hovey, and all of a sudden you hear this little do 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 from the Naked Gun almost. Henry, are you peeing on the air?
Pissing on the air, Henry? Always that sound after he gets caught doing something socially.
Ramen noodles.
Oh,
that was a classic.
We had the annual ramen noodle awards. We should put that back out there. Whoever does the best replication gets the case of ramen noodle. That was great.
That would be hard. Yeah, hard to duplicate.
Joe just donated some more money to ask this question. What are your thoughts on the Sasquatch Chronicles?
It's entertaining.
Entertaining. One of my new hashtags, thanks to one of our fine listeners. Hashtag no scriptozoology. No scriptozoology. I think, it seems to me that these are very well rehearsed guests sometimes. Not always, but my God, he always has a story to tell. Why?
There are a lot of dramatic encounters out there, more than I ever thought that have happened. I'll tell you that. And some of the earlier episodes, some of the guests were, I think, a little bit more authentic, and you could tell that by how they would say things and the descriptors they would use. So, I mean, over the years, it's, gotten more polished too, which I think is
right. And like I said, I don't think all of them are scripted.
Yeah.
But I think when they run low, there's a show, Pac West Bigfoot, that is, that tells stories of Bigfoot that are based on real stories, but they're embellished.
Yep.
And he admits that right there beforehand, and at least that's cool. I don't know. I think towards the beginning of the Sasquatch Chronicles too, they were trying to portray Bigfoot as this dangerous beast with sentinels and lookouts and all this other stuff. And if you want to, almost kind of trying to cater to the people that want a scary story,
And like I said, it's good entertainment, but if you're looking for a research perspective, I don't think that's the avenue you want to go.
Or you really want a good horror story, talk to my ex-mother-in-law. Anyway, anyway, he did say ex-mother-in-law, by the way.
Yes.
I'll say this, Steve, because we've done this so long, I took a 10-year break because there was nothing to talk about anymore. How long I'm going through a creative dry spell now with what to talk about. So, I don't know. How long do we stay on the air? I mean, it's as long as we stay interested in it, I guess, because it ebbs and flows.
I always, there have been days where I'm like, and I don't make a decision on what to do to a show till we're like a couple hours out. Because sometimes I need that pressure to come up with an idea. But there are so many facets to this mystery that if I can't find something, I'll go to my bookshelf and find something to talk about. So if that helps at all, in any way.
I got a whole stack of them here. But
the
problem, I've not been able to get past the first couple pages of all these books. And it's not because they're bad books. I just don't know what it is right now. I've just hit that spot where not a lack of interest. It's just a lack of focus.
Burned out? Are you getting burned out?
Could be. And I think that's a little bit of the problem right now. Because you're trying to produce content, right? You got to make content. Content's king. People want content. But I would rather give them no show than a bad show. That's just
that's when you find a good guest, like Sean Forker.
Yeah. Well, you can't really control
a little bit of a blowhard.
When there's going to be a new sighting, though. A lot of times we have a dry spell. There's no new sightings, nothing going on.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot to talk about. But hey, we just keep fighting the good fight. Hang in there.
Yeah, and my final word on, just to get over to Joe K, my final word on Sasquatch Chronicles is give it a listen, take it for what it's worth. And if that's the sort of thing you enjoy it. They're not, to me, they're not doing anything illegal. People say, oh, well, it's just a grifter. No, they're not grifting. They're giving people entertainment.
Yes.
Free entertainment. And the way they're paying for the channel is through memberships or, anything voluntary. That's the kicker on this. Anything voluntary. So no, it's not. You're not twisting anybody's arm. People want to say, Dyer ripped off people. There is and there isn't certain things, like the people who walked in to pay to see a real Bigfoot. Maybe they feel ripped off. Do they have a mouth? Do they say, hey, I want my money back? This thing is bullshit. Pardon my French. If not, were they entertained? Maybe there was a sign outside the display for entertainment purposes only. I don't know.
I paid to see the Iceman when I was a kid.
Right. I mean, you pay at your own risk, just like you go to the county fair and there's a sideshow attraction, see the bearded man or see the bearded woman. or see the hair covered man, and you go in there and you go, what the hell is this?
You pay to go to the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum, and that's a bunch of BS when you walk through.
Right.
But it's still entertaining, right? It's entertainment. And like the Bigfoot field, even in terms of its entertainment or its, media, is like Baskin Robbins. There's a ton of flavors now. And like you said, if that's what you like, go for it.
Good night, Joe K. And Keiju Ninja said Minnesota Iceman was better than Rick Dyer's hoaxes. Agreed.
Yeah, I believe it was.
I believe it was.
Kind of stinky. It's good.
And while I'm on the thing, chessboard, I did get your message from Joe. And I am sorry I disappointed you. I may have spoken out of turn on something there. I just don't think that there was enough definition in the shots taken of the earth to say, hey, look, there's a Sasquatch. The capabilities there, I think that maybe perhaps the definition wasn't there. I don't know. But no, I did not mean to disrespect you, sir. And thank you for your service to our country. So my apologies there. So anyway, is Mick talking about meatloaf? Oh, no. Meatloaf, Steve.
My friends are entertaining and they're all full of BS.
Yeah,
but you love listening to them, or they wouldn't be your friends.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Dyer's claiming this, Dyer's claiming that, but other than TikTok, nobody's really given him any steam, are they?
No.
So I'm aware of. Yeah. So I'm certainly not giving him any more steam. I appeared on that show for Nikki. I always said that he will never appear on this show again, and not after the second hoax and his turn back to his narcissistic ways. So.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's coming, and we're gonna all laugh. And you know what? You're gonna see a hell of a lot of great parodies on Squatch-D TV. That's for sure. We did the first and the second time around. Remember the chimps in the boardroom, And when you see me start throwing out chimps, Steve is kind of, getting his funny on. So, in fact, you saw that in that short video I put out today that we're waiting to hear back. We've reached out to the, so hopefully we'll get some kind of response from him tomorrow on email.
Yeah.
So
I'd be interested to hear if you do get a response.
Yeah, I'm, I don't know why the comments got deleted on YouTube, but we shall see. But anyway, Sean, any final? Yes, there is. Sean, is there any final thoughts you may have for the evening before we say goodnight to our fine audience?
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I love coming on and hanging out with you guys and talking about our favorite subject, right? Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
Henry May.
There's a lot of Henry May. There's a lot of great researchers out there right now, man, that we share the states with. Pennsylvania's full of them. Guys like Bill Rigby, Eric Altman, the Seaches, the Ruperts, great friends. And, you're never going to be able to, state them all because there's just so many. But I'm just privileged to be able to work with them. My guys, Matt Arner, fantastic human being. Gwen and Carrie and Steve and Mike, a new part of my team that, we're doing some great stuff in central PA, north and central Pennsylvania, trying to get back out into the woods in a more routine way to, investigate what's going on around here because the sightings haven't stopped. Again, it just goes to who do you report them to? And unless you're out there promoting it, where do they go? So, and, I guess the final thing is if you love being entertained by it, be entertained by it. But also realize that entertainment's not always fact. And sometimes you have to be able to really delineate between the two.
And something that we always try to do, and I know Sean always tries to do, is we always try to cut you the truth. No matter how ugly or even if it's not part of the general narrative, we always try to cut to the truth. And, if anybody's ever waiting for a snap decision on something, like I said on the other show, is that investigations take time, and I'm pragmatic about things.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Truth comes out over time. So, Chris, again, thank you, Sean. Chris, your final thoughts for the night?
Again, I want to thank Sean Forkert for being on. It's always an honor to have you, bud. We appreciate you having me every time you come on. Thank everybody in the chat room and all of our podcast listeners. If it's your first time checking out the channel on YouTube, hit us a subscribe, pop the like button, share. Sharing is caring. We appreciate you.
Yep.
Help us get found in the algorithm. Thank you.
And Sean, if you want to stick around for just a couple of more seconds after we run the app, we'll say our goodbyes.
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, on behalf of everybody here at Squatch-D TV, we want to wish everybody a happy, safe, healthy week. And keep an eye out for anything that drops on the channel about the Ontario Boater Sasquatch video. I'm sure there's going to be an update probably maybe tomorrow, maybe not. We'll see. I have a good feeling that by the end of the day tomorrow, we'll have some answers. Whether it be something or nothing, we'll see. Again, everybody have a happy, safe, healthy week. God bless. Keep on squatching. We'll catch you all here next Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern here on Squatch-D TV. Peace out, folks. Love you guys.
Hey, folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless. And keep on squatching.